All right, and I want to make sure that I'm saying these right. BenRiach. Oh gosh. BenRiach.
I can say it.
Well, no, I want to be able to introduce it and kind of talk about it. So BenRiach.
I want to hear him fumble.
GlenDronach, right? And then Glenglassaugh.
Glenglassaugh. Have a glass of Glenglassaugh.
Glenglassaugh. Okay.
Have a glass of Glenglassaugh.
I must weave that one in now that I thought of it.
You should make them pay you for that idea.
I'm going to butcher this so bad.
Happy New Year, everybody. It is episode 234 of Bourbon Pursuit. And with the new year, it comes time that we can all reflect back and start with a clean slate. It gives us a chance to focus on where things are exciting and where we see change happening. And we looked at the world of bourbon and saw that there's too much drama. So we explored what else in this wonderful world of whiskey has to offer. And we decided that we're going to start venturing off into Scotch. So now you can look forward to a whole lot more Scotch podcasts happening in 2020. All right, that was a bad joke. We're not going to be doing any of that. We don't have any other Scotch Plain episodes except for this one you're going to hear today, so you're in the clear. All right, now let's get on with the news. The bourbon world lost another great on Christmas Day of 2019 with the passing of Al Young from Four Roses. Al served in various roles at Four Roses for 52 years. In 1990, he became distillery manager, and in 2007 was named Four Roses Bourbon Brand Ambassador. He was also a historian and published the book Four Roses, The Return of a Whiskey Legend in 2010. Al was inducted into the Whiskey Magazine Hall of Fame in 2015, and he's also a member of the Kentucky Distillers Association Kentucky Bourbon Hall of Fame. After the dedication of the 50th anniversary bottle in 2017, he was boosted in the spotlight and he was regularly seen during private barrel selections. We captured him telling the story of Four Roses and part of his career way back on episode 3 in 2015. Our thoughts and prayers go out to his family, friends, and the entire Four Roses community. We covered this in the podcast way back in July because on July 3rd, 2019, lightning struck a warehouse at Beam's Maturation Complex on the site of the former Old Crow Distillery on McCracken Road. The warehouse held an estimated 40,000 barrels of whiskey and collapsed, resulting in a fire. The site is located on the banks of the Glens Creek, which flows into the Kentucky River, which eventually goes into the Ohio River. State fish and wildlife investigators later found dead fish along 62 miles of all three waterways, with the most impact happening in Glens Creek in the Kentucky River. Beam Suntory has agreed to pay the state of Kentucky more than $700,000 following the environmental damage from July's warehouse fire. According to Louisville's Courier-Journal, the Kentucky Energy and Environmental Cabinet negotiated a $600,000 fine with the company's Jim Beam's brand unit, an additional $112,000 to reimburse the agency for its expenses from the fire. Now, we've talked about the rise of shipping alcohol on the podcast plenty of times before, but now there are studies coming out. The volume of liquor sold online in the U.S. should be more than quadrupled by 2024, reaching an estimated value of $13.4 billion. And this is according to IWSR, who is the global benchmark for beverage alcohol and data intelligence. Now, there are hurdles that come along with this. You've got the antiquated three-tier system. You got blue laws in individual states that take care of age verification. And you also have perception, because half of the people that were surveyed during this thought that purchasing online was illegal. With companies like Drizzly leading the charge, along with other retailers using things like Instacart for Costco, people like this are doing same-day delivery. Expect to see more that can happen in 2020. Thank you to everyone who supported the Bourbon Pursuit Christmas charity raffles. We raised $13,740 for the USO, Pets for Vets, and Love City. We appreciate everyone who took the time to donate to these good causes, and the winners, you'll be receiving your items in the mail over the next 2 weeks. We've been truly impressed by our latest Pursuit Series offerings. Episode 18 of Pursuit Series was our first ever rye barrel, and it came from Finger Lakes Distilling. It's a 4-year-old, but it packs fruit and spice all in one for $65. And we also released episode 19, which is from our Tennessee stock. It's a 10-year-old bourbon, and it tastes like those orange push-ups that we all used to love as kids. We have less than 15 bottles remaining of episode 18 and about 80 bottles left of episode 19. We also have less than 10 bottles remaining of episode 12, so you better act fast. You can get the links to purchase all these by going to pursuitspirits.com. This was an exciting episode for Ryan and I. We don't know anything about Scotch, like none. At least when we started this podcast, we were curious about bourbon, and we started to learn a whole lot more before really diving into it. So what better way to get the full experience about Scotch than by having Dr. Rachel Barrie, who is a master blender for multiple lines of Scotches, come on the show and show us the ropes. We talk about malting, peat, regulations to be considered a Scotch, temperatures, and a whole lot more. This is a fantastic 101 to the Scotch world, and even made us not so much Scotch curious, but more so single malt curious. Since this recording, we've tried various American and foreign single malts and found some that we've really loved and enjoyed. So there's a lot more out there than bourbon for most of us. Now, sit back, let's relax, let's hear what Joe from Barrel Bourbon has to say, and then you've got Fred Minnick with Above the Char.
I'm Joe Beatrice, founder of Barrel Craft Spirits. We explore whiskey in an entirely new way. My team at Barrel Craft Spirits selects and blends barrels of whiskey into something greater than the sum of their parts. Next time, ask your bartender for Barrel Bourbon.
I'm Fred Minnick, and this is Above the Char. There are a few people you meet in life where they just instantly feel like they're a brother or a family member or someone who just cares so deeply about another human being that they would just do anything for a total stranger. That's who Al Young was. Al Young was probably the most knowledgeable person in bourbon that never wanted any credit. Al Young was this incredible brand ambassador for Four Roses, who had started working for the Seagram's Company in 1967 and had been all over the place in the distilling business. You know, to me, the pinnacle of his career was when he served as the plant manager for Four Roses. Everybody talks about the master distiller, but Al was the plant manager. And when it came time to retire, they found another job for him because they didn't want to let him go. Because anybody who ever met Al Young just felt this kismet kind of special relationship to him. He was avuncular, caring, kind, and he wanted to know about you. That's what made Al Young so special, was that it was about bourbon and he loved Four Roses, but it was never about really anything other than the people. Al wanted to know where you grew up, how many kids you have, what you love about whiskey, what you don't like. He wanted to talk to you and learn about you. And so when he passed away on Christmas Day this past week, I think a lot of us felt that. We felt this big hole that we lost a friend. And yeah, we always talked about how we lost a whiskey legend, but more than anything, Al was everybody's friend. And if you ever did a barrel pick with him, if you ever shook his hand, if you ever had a drink with him in a bar or had a sandwich in a cafe, you know what I'm talking about. Al Young was one of a kind, and he will be missed. And that's this week's Above the Char. If you want to learn more about Al Young's contributions, go check out my Forbes article. Visit Forbes.com, and you should also check out the book he wrote about Four Roses. You can just find it on Amazon. Search for Four Roses. Until next week, cheers.
Welcome back to another episode of Bourbon Pursuit, the official podcast of bourbon. Kenny and Ryan here on site in another studio. We're at Brown-Forman studio.
Yes.
But today we're talking about a topic that's so green to us. Like we got this email from Andrea who set this up, and I said, let's take it. Let's do the opportunity because we need to branch out a little bit because we've been so bourbon focused in our podcasts and in our lives. We forget about this. Oh, there's this whole other world of whiskey that we're not even touching on it. That actually, if you look at it, sort of trumps even what bourbon does on the global map too.
Oh, yes. But by far, and it was funny on the way here, I was thinking like, all right, what are we going to talk about? And then like start thinking like when you're like in your 20s, early 20s, you like kind of make all these rules for yourself. Like, I will never pay someone to mow my lawn, or my kids won't be the ones that screaming at the restaurant. And another rule for me was, because I'm from Bardstown, I will never drink scotch. But today I'm changing that, and I'm excited to learn about it. and drink some scotch.
I know it's going to be exciting to do that, and that's really why we have. And this is what I love about this is that we have a guest on today that is pretty world renowned, especially for the scotches that she blends and she touches. I think we might be a little jaded. We might be sitting in the bounds of royalty right now, not even really recognize it.
Yeah, we're peasants in the scotch game.
So let's go ahead and introduce our guest today. So today we have Rachel Barrie. Rachel is the master blender for BenRiach, the GlenDronach, Glenglassaugh. I hope I got that right, for single malt Scotch whiskeys in the Brown-Forman portfolio. So Rachel, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
You did well with those, Kenny.
Yeah, I know.
Beforehand, he was kind of fumbling through. It was quite comical.
Because we want a glass of Glenglassaugh. Is that how it was?
Well, I said a glass of Glenglassaugh.
See, that sounds.
I have a very basic question that starts off. While the Glens and Bens, there's Glenlivet, Glenmorangie, Glenglassaugh, GlenDronach, where's the Glen?
It's all to do with altitude, really.
Okay.
So GlenDronach is very deep down in the valley of Brambles. So it's a glen.
Okay.
And Glenglassaugh is deep down beside the sea.
Okay.
So you have to, again, go down into Glenglassaugh. And then BenRiach is a little bit higher altitude.
We call those haulers here.
Really?
We call them haulers.
You go down to the holler.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You go fishing down
Perhaps.
the holler.
Exactly.
You can go fishing there, absolutely.
You can go
surfing there.
Oh, no, there's no surfing in the hollers.
We've got surfing.
Yeah.
We're by the sea.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. And then BenRiach is a slightly higher altitude. So it's a Ben.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so I'm assuming the altitudes do something to the whiskey that really kind of push into the name of it as well.
Yeah, everything makes a difference with Scotch. I mean, Scotch whiskey's been around since 1494, if not for centuries before. That was our earliest recorded evidence. And we've got 128 distilleries in Scotland. Mm-hmm. And no two distilleries are the same. It's the spirit with the greatest diversity of style and individuality of character in the world.
Oh, and we're going to be tasting through those a little bit later.
We'll dive into those. I probably jumped ahead. Kenny's itinerary or objectives here.
I mean,
so yeah, altitude is a part of it. It's a part of it. It's one part of many parts.
Okay.
Glad we got that.
So it's kind of like, Pinots. You kind of grow Pinot Noir in the wine. You kind of grow in the more lower humid regions, and then you have grapes in the higher regions that get more sun, and it's kind of gives different flavors. Right?
Yeah, it affects the maturation. It affects the fermentation where the distillery is.
Gotcha. Cool.
And so you're based out of Scotland too, is that correct?
Absolutely.
Where in Scotland?
Well, I was born 5 minutes from GlenDronach Distillery, and I was brought up there. And then I went to Edinburgh University, and the head office, the Brown-Forman production head office in Edinburgh for the Scotch whiskies.
There we go.
So you grew up by it, so you're destined to be in Scotch.
Absolutely. And, I've come home working for GlenDronach and BenRiach and Glenglassaugh because, born near GlenDronach, I learned to surf with my dad at Glenglassaugh, and I learned to glide at BenRiach.
No, that's cool. So I guess talk about growing up around it. I mean, was your family have an influence into it at all, or was it just something that you just kind of naturally gravitated towards?
Well, my dad was the first to share with me a wee dram when I was far too young. I shouldn't say this to be having a wee dram.
That's okay. I think everybody's had the story. Yeah.
And he also collects malt, so he was a big malt aficionado. It's more actually being involved in farming as well. It's more that side of things than distilling. But yeah, it was serendipity getting into it, really. Because I'm a chemist by trade, and I could have worked for oil or, pharmaceuticals and got offered jobs with those. But then I just happened to be cycling past the career service. On the last day, a job was advertised at the Scotch Whisky Research Institute. Didn't even know such a job existed, and got the job. And then I've never looked back. 4 years and researching the alchemy of Scotch and then making it. So
that's
it's been a fun journey.
Now, the other thing we forgot to mention, you're also a doctor of the trade. Am I correct as well?
So last year I got an honorary doctorate from the University of Edinburgh, so I was honoured to be given that.
I feel even worse about myself now.
See, not only staying in the hands of greatness, we're also a doctor in front of us.
Well, I actually studied medicine first as well. It's quite funny.
Well, whiskey is medicine.
It sure is. That's what I say. That's what I say. You know, a wee dramedy keeps a doctor a day.
Yep.
Away.
How much have you been drinking already today? No, I'm just kidding with you on that one. So let's talk a little bit more about, your history, going, because I know that you've had your hands in a lot of the Glens and Bens of the region as well before you were a master blender here at Brown-Forman, taking care of the brands here. So kind of talk about some of that history too.
Yeah, I mean, I started off with a glen in the far north of Scotland, 2 glens, Glenmorangie, Glenmurray, and then also Isla with our beg, and worked with their blends as well, creating them. So that was a fun journey. That was 16, 17 years. And then moved to Beaumore, worked more with Isla. And with the Highlands, with another glen, and also with the Lowlands, with a Glasgow distillery. And then a couple more Islas and another Highland. But I've left the best to last, working with Brown-Forman, because it's truly going home. So I've done my whiskey exploration.
Yeah, you've seen them all.
Yeah.
Whenever I see a bottle of Glenmorangie, I'm like, does it taste like oranges? Or, I don't know. It looks like an orange bottle. Like, I don't know. What's the difference between, like, you talked about Isla. I guess that's where Lafroig and, different types of brands. What makes the region different?
The region's one part. It's one part. I mean, a lot of it is down to the conditions. So,
I mean, you're right, because I hear people talk about Speyside and stuff like that too.
Well,
and I don't really know.
Speyside's got 50 to 60 distilleries in it, so it's where most of the distilleries are. And BenRiach is right in the heart of Speyside, halfway between the mountain and the sea, and it's beautifully balanced. It tends to be, fruit-laden malts are from Speyside, so BenRiach is particularly fruit-laden, like orchard fruit. So everything makes a difference. Shape of the stills, the water, the barley. Yeah, and then the Highlands. There's actually with GlenDronach, there's actually very few distilleries in the Eastern Highlands. There's only 3, so GlenDronach is incredibly distinctive, and it's a real old school malt.
Well, what makes it an old school? Because you got to understand, we're coming to this to be like we know mash bills.
Let's start at the basics.
Yeah.
Scotch, like what is in Scotch versus a bourbon?
Okay, here we go.
Yeah.
Here we go. We've only got, for malt whiskey anyway, single malt, and that's the category that's growing. That's what people are really loving, and we've got 3 award-winning top distilleries. 3 ingredients: malted barley, so it has to be malt for a single malt whiskey.
Is there a percentage in that? Like, sir, does there a certain
100% malt.
Gotcha.
There we go.
So when you go the tour, it's like it has to be 100% malt
For a single malt
like
distillery.
here, they're always like 51% corn. That's the thing you hear.
100% malt, because malted barley is the most complex material you can create flavour from in the world.
Okay.
There's hundreds of flavour compounds created from malted barley, and therefore...
Why is that versus other grains?
Because it's just packed full of amino acids, of lipids, as well as the starch that gives you the sugars. So there's just so much. On the husk, you even get vanilla, you get citrus. There's so much to be extracted and converted by the yeast into flavour. So it's much, much more than just alcohol. So in fermentation, you actually create the same flavours as you would do in a wine. So, people often say, oh, how do you get this grapiness from malt? I'm like, malt is magical. It just creates all this flavour. And that's why no 2 distilleries are the same. It's a very complex material, and it's the synchronicity of where the distillery is, every single step of the process, that creates quite a distinctive character.
I was about to say, how do you keep that consistent between the distilleries? Because I would imagine that, one farmer's barley that you got to bring in and malt. Like you had to have some sort of process to try to get a consistency.
Yeah,
But
I mean-
there's always going to be some sort of variations.
Yeah, I mean, the malted barley varieties per year might be slightly different, more to do with the harvest. But generally, most of Scotland will be growing the same varieties because they're the ones that are working and are disease resistant and grow and give you the highest yield. But I mean, the malting process can affect it. At BenRiach, we've got our own maltings, which is something really special. One of only 2 distilleries of those 55 distilleries in Scotland that have their own maltings. So that adds something special. We don't malt all year, but we do batches.
For somebody that doesn't know, can you describe what malting or malt is?
Malting is just bringing
that's somebody
barley.
might be me.
Yeah, is bringing the barley to life. So the barley is harvested. Spring barley is harvested in August, and then it will be malted typically, in the autumn, or it can be kept as just the green barley, as we call it, before it's malted for longer and malted in the spring. But malting means that you basically steep it in water.
Okay.
So you're giving it some moisture, which is encouraging it to grow.
Yep.
And the growing phase is called germination.
Yep.
And that's where the malt is laid out on the floor. And the old style is with to shovel it, basically, a malt shovel, to turn it. So it
So it's
stops it
actually
from all knitting
sprouting?
together.
Is
It
it-
stops it from knitting together with the sprouts.
Okay.
And it ensures an even temperature. And this allows the enzymes to start working and fooling the barley into thinking it's growing.
Right.
Because giving it those conditions. And so when we've got the enzymes just perfect and the barley is modified so that it's activate those enzymes, it's then we need to stop it. And that is done through malt kilning. And that's where the germinated barley is raised onto a malting floor, and beneath that there is heat, and that's the kiln.
Okay.
Traditionally, peat was used in most distilleries, going way, way, way back. But then, in the 20th century, there was gas, etc. So most distilleries these days are unpeated. With BenRiach, we've got both. So we're very lucky to have both. But peat itself is found a lot in Scotland. For BenRiach, we source it from nearby the distillery. And there was Caledonian forests 10,000 years ago. And over 10,000 years, the Caledonian forest has broken down over time, over this time, and created the peat that we use. So our peat, actually, you can see fibres in it, almost like fibres of wood.
So is this like sphagnum peat moss or anything like that type, or?
No, this is more like woodrich.
Woodrich, okay.
And this is because it's from the northeast, where
Gotcha.
we do have Caledonian forests. Whereas if you went to Islay, which is an island off the west coast, which makes the most, I suppose, the highest density of peated whiskies.
And when you say
that basically-
peat, is it peat moss?
Peat moss,
Yeah,
sorry.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Peat moss, and also...
Only because I use peat moss. I have an turf management.
I was about to say he's finally
I have a turf
putting his
management,
college degree to work here.
Horticulture degree, and we use
wow.
we use peat moss to improve soil profiles and textures because it's rich in organic matter.
Fantastic. There
and
you
all
go.
that stuff,
Well, it's
so-
all that organic
See?
matter,
Yeah,
you see,
exactly, yeah.
that's decayed over 10,000 years. And in different parts of the geography of Scotland, you have, different types of vegetation. And when you burn the peat, which fuels the fire that malts the barley, the aromas from that material, that vegetation, permeate the barley. So this introduces smoky flavours. And, more on Islay, you'll find something more medicinal, more seaweedy, decaying sweet seaweed type of smell.
Yep.
Whereas with BenRiach, it's that sweet wood smoke, almost like a barbecue smell. I think
Okay.
people in Kentucky would love it. It's really, really sweet.
And I guess that's
wood
based
smoke.
on the native vegetation there. Cause
Yeah, absolutely. But also in Speyside, this is very, very rare, right? We peat every year we do a batch. So it's around 15% of what we do. And then I get to have fun playing tunes with the peat and the unpeated stock and with flavour and create flavour. So it's great fun. But Speyside typically is unpeated. Malts, they tend to have most of your Glens. So BenRiach's really very bold and adventurous in having.
Is there anything like a peat shortage, or is that ever worried? Like,
No, we've got enough
people
peat.
here talk about, usage of oak or whatever. They're like, oh, you're creating an oak shortage. They ever complain about they're all using all our peat?
We've got plenty of peat.
Okay, cool.
Don't worry about the peat. There's plenty of peat.
Gotcha.
It doesn't actually take that much of peat to create the smoke, to fuel the fire, etc. So it's all relative, isn't it? Probably use more in your horticulture.
Yeah. It's the dang farmers and weekend gardeners.
Well, see, I was kind of curious about what was the shift of moving away from peat? Was it just inefficiencies of scale, or was it a change in flavor that people were looking for? Like, what was because you said most distilleries are kind of shifting away from that.
Historically, it was more to do with the fact that we could get natural gas to dry the barley, which is more efficient, and also better for the environment overall. So yeah,
Very cool.
but
So I think we hit step one.
Step one.
efficiency,
All right,
yeah.
we got
barley, we got
the barley, then we're malting it, and then we're kilning it
Yeah.
to dry it out to stop the germination
Yeah.
process. All right, where are we at? Step C.
Next step, we get the malted barley in to mill it. So
Okay.
we have to put it in a mill, and there's two different types of mill in distilleries, Porteous or a Bobby mill, and they've got 4 different rollers. And when it goes through the mill, this cracks open the husk,
Okay.
which is the surface of the barley, and then it goes down to the next level of rollers, and it gives you 3 different particle sizes, which are the husk on the outside of the barley, the grist in the middle, and the flour. And you have to get the perfect combination to give you the best taste and to get the most extraction.
How do you get the perfect combination?
Well, you just know what's right for you.
Gotcha.
And then you can use a sieve, and you use a sieve and you work out your different particle sizes, percentages.
Gotcha.
It's actually a really simple process for the guys to do at the distillery. But typically...
kind of analogous to like the corn that we take and, basically churn into
Yep.
a powdered form when we're sitting there getting ready to do our mash. I mean, I guess that would probably be analogous.
Too much
almost.
flour or powder is not good because it would clog up the mash tun.
Okay.
Okay, it would give you lots of alcohol, and also it's not as good for flavour. Husk is great because it gives us a filter bed in the mash tun, and we want to produce a clear wort. So when we drain it off, it filters through. And then the grist is the majority at 70% in the middle size particles. Gives us great flavour and alcohol.
Awesome. All right. So we're moving past the mills. Where are we going next?
We're going into the mash tun.
All right.
And there's different sort of mash tuns in Scotch. At GlenDronach, we've got copper mash tun, which goes right back to 1826. It's incredible. Lots of contact with copper. It's a traditional rake and plough. It's a very slow process. It takes 6 hours to mash. BenRiach also takes a long time to mash, very slow. Where some more efficient, bigger distilleries might take 3 hours.
Okay.
But we believe slow and steady wins the race.
That's right. The tortoise always wins when I read the story.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know Peter Pan. Do you know the tortoise? You know, the hare? Okay.
Yeah. Well, you get complexity in whiskey if you take your time.
That's right.
So with BenRiach, for example, we add 1 water at around 60, 65 degrees. We mash this, and then we drain it off through the filter bed, and then we add another water at a higher temperature, around 74, and we drain it off, and they both go into the fermentation process. And then we add 2 more waters, which just clean it all out and go back into the first with the first water from the next run. So we
Sour mash water. Is that kind of what we're thinking here?
So we basically are great economists in Scotland. We don't let any drop go to waste.
Yeah. And so with fermentation, are you all hanging your hat on like this is our own yeast we've had since 1400 or whatever you said?
Well, do you know,
or if it's
we've got great distillers yeast that
Yep.
the whole industry uses, which are perfect for Scotch. So we've got a distillers yeast that's perfect for Scotch. But when we ferment as well, you know, this is where a bit the magic comes in. You know, we've got washbacks that, you know, air does the natural flora can get into, so it can influence the fermentation as well.
So open air tanks kind of sort of thing. I gotcha.
Well, at GlenDronach, we have Scottish larch washbacks. And
Sorry,
you know,
say it again. I
Scottish larch, it's a wood,
Oh, okay.
type of wood.
See, he knew exactly. He was nodding his head. He's like, "Yeah, I know what you're talking
Yeah,
about."
larch,
I'm like,
it's a
I got
wood.
nothing here. So
It's a wood. So
Sorry,
yeah.
Kenny, it's not computers.
I was like, you know, you think about some distilleries we go to, and they've got the cypress tanks. You know, I
Right.
understand that, but yeah, this is another species. I
This
wasn't.
is so Scottish larch, and therefore, you know, it can breathe. You can never get it fully cleaned, but that's great because it gets more of the microflora.
Yeah, you got that
nature.
funk.
Character.
Character,
yeah,
that's what-
or funk.
Yeah.
But character, yes. Funk's a good thing. though.
Robust.
Robust, yes.
Character. Robust Highland character.
Yes, that's how royalty says it.
Yeah.
Like another word. All right, so we're through fermentation. I'm soon distilling copper stills, right? Pot stills.
Oh, copper pot stills.
Yeah.
And no distilleries.
column
Copper
stills
pills are the
ever?
same. Never column stills for malt. Never.
Okay. And why is
No.
that?
Yeah, I was like saying it's because it's pretty efficient in what we see around here. That's kind of what a lot of the distilleries hang their hats on, are doing a lot of bourbon and a lot of runs at once, is basically using really massive column stills.
We have one of the most inefficient processes. That gives you incredible complexity of flavour. It's all about the flavour at the end of the day. And with single malt in particular, there's lots going on. So you want to take one cut that's special for your distillery in the second distillation. So there's two distillations typically in Scotch. The first one's called the wash still, it tends to be the bigger still, and the second one is the spirit still. In the first still, you distill the beer from around 8% alcohol up to around 24%, and that's called the low wines. And then you take the low wines, which is 24, into the second still, the spirit still, and we cut the middle point. So when it's distilling over, with BenRiach, for example, 13 minutes, we just recycle. So we cut it. It goes into one chamber. Mm-hmm. And then the middle heart goes into another chamber, and that is for filling into cask. And then the tails go back into that first chamber, and then they're all recycled.
Okay.
So it's a very slow process, but it means that we capture very specific flavors. And then the still design has an influence as well. So at BenRiach, we've got very pear-shaped stills. They just look like beautiful pears. And this captures almost a fruity pear drop apple character. It's like an apple orchard in the stills. Whereas at GlenDronach, we have almost like saxophone stills. Very unusual design, certainly in terms of the neck. It curls round, up and down, just like a swan's neck. And this is very, very unusual. So we have a boil ball that gives you lots of reflux, and then the swan's neck. So we get this unique character.
How many different kinds of stills have you seen over your course of time, you know, with all the different
Hundreds.
kinds of... So, I mean, there's not kind of like a good recipe that everybody kind of follows along. Like around here, everybody goes, "Oh, let's just call Vendome and we'll
Call it a
day." Yeah, write a check, and then all
Is
of a
there a
sudden,
Vendome of Scotland?
Well, there's a Forsyths, yeah,
Okay.
coppersmiths, and they replaced the stills. Remember, Scotch whiskey's been going for a long time. GlenDronach was 1826, you know, when it got those stills. So they'll replace them exactly, you know, every little bash, everything just the right, exactly the same dimensions for each distillery. Yeah, so they're the coppersmiths.
I gotcha.
Yeah, so quite often you see stills just driving along the road, being replaced.
Yeah, that's awesome though.
Because the copper does wear. I mean, copper's great. It's a great conductor. It's wonderful for flavour. because it catalyzes more fruit. It takes out the harsher elements. It's magical.
Absolutely. And so from there, you've got your hearts, and you're assuming you're filling barrels now.
You're filling barrels,
Okay.
absolutely.
Is it typical still 53-gallon, sometime ex-bourbon cask? Like, talk about the barrels.
Well, it's interesting because if you go back to 1826, for example, back then it was sherry principally that was imported into Scotland and bottles. And then the casks were just used as surplus. Before then, it was aqua vitae, water of life, clear spirit, that farmers made because they had surplus barley. Who wouldn't?
Yeah, right. We call that a little bit different around here, don't we? We call that moonshine.
Yep.
Yeah, so it was serendipity, as many things in the Scotch industry, that these sherry casks in the main, but there was also port casks, claret casks, what at that point, were used to house the whiskey.
What's
before
your favorite
consumption.
cask?
You can't ask me that. No. I love wood. No, I mean, I've spent so much time analysing oak from around the world. I just love them all. I cannot say that. That's impossible.
That's a cop-out.
Yeah. I love the one I'm creating the whiskey with that day.
That day.
So
Gotcha.
today, yeah. Today.
You're fully present with that cask.
I'm fully present with each cask.
Gotcha.
Absolutely.
All right, so what was the last
Absolutely.
cask you used?
What was the last? I came to Louisville a few days ago, and the last cask I nosed from was definitely a GlenDronach Pedro Jimenez cask. That was the last one.
PX sherry, right? Is that what they call
PX.
it?
Yeah,
okay.
Pedro Jimenez. So that was the last one.
I'm learning.
But the beauty of Scotch, and it's part of its authenticity as well, is that we have this incredible selection. We have to use oak. Oak is the best.
Yeah.
Other woods just do not cut the mustard. They don't have the complexity. But apart from that, it can have been, virgin oak we can use, just like in bourbon, or used casks. So, for example, with BenRiach, we have the most eclectic collection of casks in Speyside, if not in the whole of Scotland. In Warehouse 13, we've got everything from the virgin oak to bourbon to rum to red wine, Bordeaux, Claret, Rioja, to Moscatel, Marsala, to Tawny Port, Ruby Port, to must have missed one out. Have I thought of any more?
I
Let's
think
of some more.
you hit more than I could come up with.
Come on, you can
I don't
come up
even
with
know
some
what you're
guy.
talking about now.
Madeira, Sauterne.
Okay.
Yep.
You've heard of
So-
these? Have
Yes,
you heard
I've
of
heard
these?
of- yeah.
So you have all
Yeah.
these different casks, and I guess we'll get into your the
blending.
magic of blending. And well, let's talk about blend. So like here, like the master distiller is like the celebrity or the the person that everyone looks to. Like, but I hear over there the master blender is kind of like the rock star.
Hidden away, nosing lots of casks. I nose about 5,000 samples per year from casks because it's such a complex spirit, and no two casks are the same. Can be very different. So I've nosed about 150,000 casks
Wow.
in my lifetime so far, and counting. But it is the key part of delivering a perfectly balanced single malt is knowing obviously what wood to use, what your wood policy is, because we can reuse them more than once, and then the different recipes as such are almost in the cask selection. So the percentage you might use, a bourbon cask, virgin oak, although very few use virgin oak. We've got a real, we're on to a winner here with Brown-Forman because we have the source of virgin oak.
Oh, yeah.
It's absolutely amazing. It's great to play with and
tons
to,
of used
to work it
barrels.
out. And
Tons of used barrels.
And great Daniels barrels,
Yeah.
Woodford Reserve, Old Forester, take your pick. So so it's up to the master blender to kind of work out in conjunction, obviously in collaboration with various people in the business,
So, like,
or
do you-
influencing various people in the business to say, oh, I think this will really work, and the consumer will love it, and
So like when
shape
you're doing a
the
blend,
portfolio.
are you like, all right, I went 30 ex-bourbon blends, I went 35 ex-Madeira blends or Madeira cask finish, and then to blend to make, a brand? Or like, or is there no formula?
Well, it's really up to the whiskey, and to be honest, it's the whiskey that tells me. Because
Just keep nosing. Keep nosing all
keep
day.
nosing. It tells you. It tells you the story. It tells you what it wants to be. You just have to listen.
So you're not the guidance counselor. You, like Jackie says, when she gets barrels off, she can like taste them and be like, all right, you're going off to be the Old Forester, you're going to be the Prohibition series, you're going like here and there, but
Yeah,
you
no,
let
I
the
do
whiskey
that.
actually,
Yeah.
you actually let the whiskey tell you what to do with it.
Absolutely. You know,
I
the
like that
character
style
of the
of
whiskey.
parenting, you know.
The character of the whiskey tells me what to do with it. I mean, with BenRiach, it's got a perfect balance of fruit, malt, and oak. You know, and that is the key for me, is to create character, individuality, make it shine, just bring it all out. You know, so with BenRiach 10. For example, I don't know if this is an appropriate time to
Yeah,
Might as
to
well.
nose. Yeah, so BenRiach 10.
it's after lunch.
With a career as a master distiller spanning almost 50 years, as well as a Kentucky Bourbon Hall of Famer and having over 100 million people taste his products, Steve Nally is a legend of bourbon who for years made Maker's Mark with expertise and precision. His latest project is with Bardstown Bourbon Company, a state-of-the-art distillery in the heart of the bourbon capital of the world. They're known for their popular Fusion series. However, they're adding something new in 2020 with a release named The Prisoner. It starts as a 9-year-old Tennessee bourbon that is then finished in The Prisoner Wine Company's French oak barrels for 18 months. The good news is you don't have to wait till next year to try it. Steve and the team at Bardstown Bourbon Company have teamed up with Rack House Whiskey Club. Rack House Whiskey Club is a Whiskey of the Month club on a mission to uncover the best flavors and stories that craft distilleries across the U.S. have to offer. Their December box features a full-size bottle of Bardstown's Fusion series and a 200 milliliter bottle of The Prisoner. There's also some cool merch inside, and as always, with this membership, shipping is free. Get your hands on some early release Bardstown bourbon by signing up at rackhousewhiskeyclub.com. Use code PURSUIT for $25 off your first box.
So with BenRiach 10, for example, I don't know if this is an appropriate time to
Yeah,
Might
to
as well.
nose. Yeah, so BenRiach 10.
it's after lunch.
So this is a core whiskey from BenRiach. It's unpeated.
All right, just to make sure, we're going which way?
Left to right.
left
to right.
Left
So-
to right. Ben-
I'll know if you're not. Don't
Okay.
worry.
Yeah.
Well, the last
we go.
time we did this, we were with Jackie, and I went right to left, and I was like, I'm not getting the same notes as you all, but that's me for not following directions.
So this is
Okay.
the gray label one that we're trying. Is
So
that correct?
this is the core product, and this is a marriage of bourbon. So principally, it's Jack Daniel's cask. That's the main constituent of this product. Also, some sherry casks from European oak, and then also some of the Brown-Forman cooperage virgin oak, which is medium toasted and medium charred, the same as Jack Daniel's.
Yes.
Funny
So-
you talk about fruit. I smell like Hawaiian punch, or like beachy
pineapple,
kind of
yeah.
pineapple, like
Toasted coconut, something like
Yeah.
The
that.
more you nose it, the more fruit you're going to get. It just keeps on giving. BenRiach, it just it's so fruit laden.
it's like a pina colada or something.
Yeah. Well, you get pina colada.
Yep.
I get an apple orchard.
Can I work with you?
Ripening.
Yeah, now.
Ripening peaches.
Yeah, Ryan will come up with the best tasting notes for you, I promise.
I know. I think
You're
of
on the
everything.
beach.
I think everything I had as a child, and I'm like, all right, we're gonna find this in the whiskey.
Yeah, and you found it.
I did. Well, I didn't have pina coladas when I was a child, but
Yeah.
I did have Hawaiian punch.
Yeah.
Have you ever had Hawaiian punch?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I know what you're talking
We're
about.
all relatable still. Okay.
Yeah.
So very, very, very fruity.
Yes, very
From
fruity.
those pear-shaped cells.
Yep.
You know? Beautiful. And you got, I mean, some people who drink wine really love this. So, if you come in from Chablis or, Chardonnay, that fruitiness is very, very distinctive, layers of fruit.
So
What kind of proof are we looking at on this?
This is 43% alcohol, which is 86 degrees proof. So it's a good strength. It's just the right strength to keep the fruit, malt, and oak in perfect balance.
So like with Scotch, like bourbon, they typically like, all right, 4 years we can start selling this. When are you all like, we can start selling this? At what
Well,
age?
legally, it can be from 3 years old.
Okay.
Okay.
But I would never sell a single malt 3 years old because the complexity is so much richer. It just gives you more by 10 years old.
So at 3 years, is that for the single malt or to be called a Scotch? It has to be at least 3 years old.
For both.
Okay.
So any Scotch whisky, be it a blend of malt and grain, because we do have grain distilleries as well.
I guess we never really talked about that, like what other kind of grains are used.
I know.
But we focus on the single malt because that's where all the flavor is.
Gotcha.
So
Do you look at other grains then as like filler? Like it doesn't bring as much complexity or character to a Scotch?
The Scotch whisky industry was built on the complexity of single malt. And the grain, was pretty much there as a filler.
I gotcha. See?
You know, grain's cheaper.
So like
Yeah.
with
Single malt is, expensive to make. It's a batch process. It's handcrafted. It's, barley is expensive.
I also want to talk about aging a little bit too.
that's what I was going to ask.
Because it seems that barrels seem to like retain a lot more liquid over in Scotland. The longer they sit. I mean, you've got scotches that are
Yeah, have you
20,
been to
30,
Louisville in
40,
July?
50 years
Yeah.
old.
June.
June, yeah, it's hotter
It's
than
hot.
hell. Yeah,
And so
It never gets that hot in Scotland.
I know. I know. Sometimes I wish I lived there because it'd be so easy to grow grass in Scotland.
is. We've
It's
got
like the
lots of
perfect grass
grass.
weather.
We've got
I guess that's why it's the
incredible
birthplace of golf.
landscape. We have an incredible landscape
Yeah.
in Scotland. It's so lush.
Mm-hmm.
And it's perfect for barley as well on the East Coast and then peat on the West Coast.
Mm-hmm.
What was your question?
well, yeah, no,
Oh, sorry, I always do that. I distract people. It's ADD.
it's okay.
How did we get onto grass?
Well, I was like, we were talking about how hot it is here versus Scotland, and I'm like, Scotland's the perfect place to grow grass because grass here in June or July, it's like, it hates it. But it's good for bourbon because it's evaporating and moving in and out of the barrel,
And I guess that was the
Yeah.
question more
Yeah.
along the lines of evaporation. I mean, are you
Yeah.
seeing a lot of evaporation lost over in Scotland that you would compared to like bourbon that's coming from Ohio, Tennessee, Kentucky?
What's considered we call it a short barrel here, like if it's like below like 100 bottles, we're like, ooh, that's a short barrel. That one's going to be good. Do you have those in Scotland?
Yeah,
Yeah?
absolutely. We lose about, on average for the whole industry, and it does vary, and then we get into another discussion, we lose about 2% of the volume in litres of alcohol per year of the original cask.
Which is
Okay?
we're about what 5 to 8%. I think is kind of what you see around here. At least it's the first year. I think it's upwards of double digits, but then
Yeah.
after that, it kind of settles down a little
Yeah.
bit.
So what that means is because it's a very slow reduction, and also the alcohol strength goes down. I know in bourbon it goes up.
Oh, really?
Spell. Yeah,
I
did
didn't
you not know that?
No.
Oh, there you go.
I told you we're coming in this all green. So yeah, I had no idea.
Yeah. So the alcohol strength goes down, and that means that you're extracting different things from the oak cask the longer you leave it, because that strength's going down, but you're only losing 2% volume, meaning that you can leave it for longer. It's got more interaction with the wood, more oxidation, most importantly, for single malt, because that gives you the elegance, the complexity, the top notes, etc., the finesse that you find in a single malt.
I am
time.
amazed
Takes
by
time.
how much different flavor notes you get in this, 86 proof 10-year. What is this? The single malt? Yeah.
Yeah, BenRiach,
Yeah,
10-year-old.
there's a lot going on. It's like, it's incredible the flavors you kind of get out of it. Like I said, we're pretty amateur in Scotch, and most of the Scotch I've had have been very heavy peated, so it's like really pungent, kind of earthy, like smoky type. This is definitely more on the fruitier side, more like Captain Crunch berries. Have you ever had Captain Crunch with the berries in
No.
them? Sorry, I'm talking to Americans.
But I can imagine what you're enjoying. There.
Well, so it's kind of like, cereal and the milk with kind of
Yeah.
a little sugary substance.
Yeah,
And then you have
and the
like a
fruit.
really sugary berries inside.
Absolutely.
See? Nailed
you
it.
see? That is the
Yeah.
10-year-old.
Cheers.
Or another delicacy here in Kentucky, fruit pizza. I
Oh,
just discovered
yes.
that. I was like, fruit peats. I never heard of such
Yep,
a
a big
thing.
sugar cookie with the cream cheese icing
my
and kiwis and all that
gosh.
stuff.
Oh, I had that with this whiskey for lunch
there you
yesterday.
go.
See, we're on the same
campus.
wavelength of flavor
And it was
profile.
just amazing because you get the fruit, you get the malt, which is like the creaminess of custard and vanilla,
Yeah.
and then you get the yolk, which is like the toasted almond on top and that lovely pastry base.
Yeah.
You know, so layered. Have you tried it yet?
Fruit pizza?
Have you tried this?
Oh,
Have you tried
yeah.
the malt?
Oh, yeah.
I noticed you
Well,
having a.
Oh yeah,
having a
We,
sip.
we've all
yeah.
been
Kenny
drinking.
or Ryan?
Oh,
Ryan or Kenny?
Ryan.
Yeah.
And then we have both been drinking. Yes.
You've both, well, I haven't yet. So slanges, we say.
Oh,
Or slangeva.
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 Sounds good to me.
Cheers.
Cheers. Yeah, fruit pizza. I like it.
Yeah, so we need a new pairing. Take that one back to Scotland.
I will.
Yeah.
Except I need to visit our local patisserie
Oh yeah, maybe they can do
for
it
the
for
fruit
you.
pizza, but I don't think they call it that. But it is. It's just like a bakery, and that's the beauty of BenRiach because it's in a sweet spot between the mountain and the sea, and it has the perfect environment to give you this balance of fruit, malt, and oak. If you go up the hill a bit to other distilleries, you get a little more kind of delicate fruit, but without the malt. And if you go down, it gets a bit more oily and it loses the fruit. So we have the perfect balance to.
So this is
for me to
Ben,
play.
so it's a little higher up.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
All right,
yeah.
Cool.
But this
Well,
has.
I like the higher up.
Yeah,
Good
yeah.
job, higher up. Let's
Yeah.
go.
Yeah, let's talk
Fruity
about
and malty.
talk about the next Ben, and while I do
Well,
that.
this is the same distillery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's the same
I
distillery,
get to
but
be like
it's
Willy
a
Wonka.
different expression. So
Yeah.
talk about the different expression here, and this is the
Well,
black label for anybody that's wondering what we're talking
for anyone that's curious, we have Curiositas. Anyone that's curious about peat, because this is the peated.
about. Oh, there it
BenRiach.
is. Yep.
And going back to the 1970s,
Oh, yeah.
this is the only
Smells like my
space
garden.
side. This is the only space side to have peat and malt going back to the 1970s in all of space sides. So
And
our
to be
peat
honest-
is
be
wood
honest with
rich.
me, I mean,
Yeah.
there has to be a ton of people that love the taste and the smell of peat, and I don't know. For me, it's hard to kind of gravitate towards. Like, I'm a more fan of the other Ben versus the peated Ben, but
Yeah.
I think this is also could have been my.
It's our upbringing.
Well, I don't know if it's our upbringing. It could be, our palate's not adjusted to it. Because bourbon's very sweet.
We've had
corn.
to eat fruit pizzas.
Yeah,
in our
maybe
life.
that's what it is. But we come from bourbon, so it's very sweet.
Yeah, but
versus-
what about the barbecues?
Yeah,
true,
sure,
too.
smoky. I love smoked meats. Yeah,
Charcuterie meats.
He likes to smoke meat.
Yeah,
He's an amateur.
I got my green egg. I do some briskets and pulled pork and some ribs. Yeah, absolutely.
It does
Yeah,
smell like that.
it does. And do you have any forests? Do you have forests
We
here?
have Bernheim Forest
So
just south of us. I
in
love
the
it.
forest, were either of you Boy Scouts?
I started Tiger Scout, but then
Yeah.
I started playing baseball.
Maybe I was a cub.
There
That's
you
about
go.
it. I never really made it to
So
Eagle.
did you ever have
Yeah.
the pleasure of maybe, as you aged as well, of having a little campfire in the
Oh, yeah.
forest?
Oh yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah?
I had flint and steel at one point. I think that was the coolest thing I ever got out of Boy Scouts was actually having my
The flint and steel?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Being able to actually create a fire with that, like just
Well, have a sniff.
Oh, yeah,
Take you
okay.
back there. It will take you back there. You're in that forest
You do feel like
with
you're in
your
a fire.
flint and steel. Mm-hmm. You've got some marshmallows being toasted. Oh, you've got some sugar maple in there as well.
I
You've
get the
got-
sugar maple. It's just so radically different than what we usually
Yeah.
drink. That's why it's so it's still coming
Well,
to me.
probably the
Yeah, but that's just because you haven't tried it.
Oh, I agree.
You know, you
Open
need
your
to
mind,
just
Kenny.
try it. Open your mind.
I knew I was coming
Look
into
at the
this.
diversity of flavor
See,
we've got here.
Little Ben is the gateway gateway Scotch.
Gateway Scotch.
And then this is like
Big Ben.
Big Ben.
Well, Big Ben is a little bit higher in strength as well. It's
Okay.
46% alcohol, non-chill filtered, and 92 degrees.
Gotcha.
Proof.
What are they? Where are they coming out of the barrel typically at? You didn't already say that, did you?
No, I didn't.
We know they go down. in
Oh,
proof. We
they
know
go
that.
down. Okay, so over 10 years, we're probably going to go from the filling strength of around 63.5%.
Did you say 163.5 is what you go into the barrel at?
63.5%,
Oh,
which is
okay.
137. 137, I think,
I'm not
degrees
good at
proof.
math either.
137 degrees proof. And then it goes down to, it loses over 10 years about 5% alcohol. So it'll go down to about 58, 59.
Okay.
Typically. Depends where it is in the warehouse. Depends which warehouse it is
Yep.
in. size of the warehouse. Traditional dunnage or tall.
Is there an idea in the Scotch world of like single barrels? Like, is that a thing?
Yes. GlenDronach and BenRiach, we do single barrels for customers, for retailers, some of the specialist shops.
So it's
you
its
will
own thing.
see
I
the
didn't know.
single cask.
Do you do
individual
barrel-proof
cask.
single barrels?
Yeah, absolutely. And we've got cask strength expressions as well. So to all.
All right.
From the connoisseur.
party.
But this is 46, 92 degrees proof.
Cheers on this
there.
one. Yeah.
What was that saying?
Slanjava.
Slanjava. All right.
Oh,
yeah, this one reminds me of like my I smoke a turkey every year for Thanksgiving, and it has this like Cajun rub that I put on it. It's like kind of real spicy and kind of smoky. So like kind of makes me reminds me of that.
And this is bourbon cast. So this is Jack Daniels cast. You
Is
know?
it?
Well, no wonder.
So it's still
like home.
I feel like I'm branching out. I feel so proud of
but it's
myself
still so
right now.
fruity. That's why you're loving it, because it's still got the sweetness. Remember I said it was the peat is wood rich, so you're like smoking wood.
Yep.
And then
You got the campfire up front,
you
and
got
then
the
the fruity on the back.
campfire, and then unlike the Isla malts, we are very fruit laden, even in distillation. So we get all that fruit in there as well as the smoke. Mm-hmm. So
It's like smoking a fruit pizza.
smoking a fruit pizza. I love it.
Yep.
Get it on the camp.
Everything
That's right.
everything
And
goes
get
back to
some-
the fruit pizza around here.
Yep.
Oh, and maybe some bananas
Yeah.
on the barbecue with some chocolate in them as well.
Ooh.
Dark chocolate. Chocolate.
Have you
goes
had
great
banana
with-
croquettes yet since you've been to Kentucky?
I've not had the pleasure.
Oh, wow. Change your life.
Put on
Tonight,
the next.
I'm going to
Yeah.
ask for a banana
croquette.
croquette
It's a
for dinner.
banana rolled in mayonnaise, and then
You make it sound so good.
and then you put crushed up peanuts on it. It's magical. I promise.
Barbecue that, and this is it.
Exactly.
In a glass.
Yep. It's right here. Nailed it.
You just have to open your minds in Kentucky to the flavors that you enjoy
agree.
in your food. Mm-hmm.
So I
It's
guess
got so much.
another question that it kind of related back to bourbon a little bit is inside of bourbon we have this idea of like, oh, like there's a huge shortage, like all these higher aged expressions are getting very, very hard to find, and they're very, very expensive, and everybody rushes and jumps, and like there's this huge influx of people that are really starting to buy. Now, do you see that still happening like in the Scotch world, or is it Scotch has just been around for so long, it's had the luxury of time and stocks, and that you're able to still put out 10, 20, 30-year-old expressions? And
They've been aging since 1400.
Yeah.
So,
May I ask, is there any actually left in the barrel in Kentucky after 10, 15, 20 years?
yeah,
not much.
after, I'd say, what was it? I think we know some distilleries around. They have some 15, 20-year-old releases, but you're looking at 70 to 95 bottles in the barrel
At cask strength.
something like that. You talked to Chris Morris, we've talked about before, and birthday bourbons and stuff like that with the heat cycled warehouses, that there are times at even 12 years old that they have empty casks.
Yeah.
So it just
I would
depends.
imagine.
I think Chris just forgot to put the plug back in.
Yeah, I would imagine with virgin oak, there would just be wood, and more wood, and lots of wood.
Yeah.
I would imagine for a very long.
Oh, yeah, definitely after
Maturation
like
time.
It takes a lot of oak
14,
character.
15, you're like, all right, this is very tannicky, very, like bitter kind of finish to it. So there's like
So we're always going for balance. I mean, the fact that single malt BenRiach is so fruit laden, it means that with maturation over a long time, you're just keeping that balance, converting the wood into softer flavors. And you get a lot of reactions happening rather than just extraction. So it's very, very complex. But in answer to your question, yeah, we've got some older stocks, and we're very lucky at BenRiach because it started peating in 1972 again. And we've got stocks going back to then of the peated malt. So we've got 21-year-old Temporis as well. It's fully peated, but tastes like caramelized pear. It's incredible. And honey. Honey, sugar, maple, and toasted
I've never
oak.
had a pear
Smoked oak.
caramelized. I should
There you
get.
go.
Get on it.
I know.
Get on
Yeah,
it.
it's amazing, So you
Smoke it
think
while
it was
you're at it.
really
Yeah.
peaty, but, it's not. And, yeah, so we have all this wonderful whiskey that for people to discover in flavour, People are just waking up to malt.
Well,
So-
I guess go ahead, Ryan.
Well, I was gonna say in these. So what like as a typical barrel dump in these blends? Like how many barrels are?
Well, yeah, typically.
typical batch.
Yeah, in BenRiach, a typical batch would be around 50 to 60.
Oh, okay. That's
pretty
pretty
small.
small then.
Yeah, it's a small
Yeah,
batch.
yeah. I mean, it's pretty small batch, single malt per bottling. And obviously, I want to keep it consistent as well each time. So, yeah.
Very cool. Well,
Yeah, so we've got mostly bourbon. Bourbon for the Curiositas, the 10-year-old was the Virgin Oak, the sherry, and the bourbon. And we've got lots more expressions beside using wine casks, etc.
Oh,
So
yes.
yeah, I get to play. So you're getting it is like a patisserie. You get so much different flavor going on. You just go into that cake shop.
is it like here where you have like a I don't know why this word comes to mind, accountability partners or like tasting panel. That's what I'm looking for to like, just make sure that everything you're blending is consistent with the brand.
Yeah, I
you
mean,
know,
is
and
it
everything.
all Rachel, or is there a team behind you as well that's sort of
Would you
helping?
like to be on the team?
I do. I think I've passed. I think I could do well. Just for
Yeah.
pizza, you know.
No, I've got an assistant. I
Okay.
do have an assistant.
Just one?
Just one assistant.
Oh, wow. Gotcha.
On the flavor side.
Because typically here there's like a panel of
but-
like
It's like 5 or 6.
5 or 6 people.
However, the distillery team as well, everyone gets involved.
I
Gotcha.
They know
Yeah.
what the final product is. And speaking of final product, let's talk about the last one we have on our right, which is the GlenDronach. So talk about what this is and really what this expression is as well.
Yeah, you said it so perfectly, GlenDronach.
I've
Yeah.
55 minutes later, I think I figured it out. So.
Yeah, well, that means Valley of the Brambles. You've heard of brambles?
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 No.
No.
Blackberries. We have
Enlighten
lots
me.
of blackberries there.
Oh, okay.
Around in
We know
the distillery.
blackberries
It's
are.
beautiful. It's in the Highlands, but it's in a valley in the Highlands.
Valley in the
And
Highlands, got
I was born very close to the distillery, brought up there. It's the richest, most abundant landscape for agriculture. You'd love it. It's great soil, great, just best barley in Scotland near GlenDronach Distillery. And primarily we use sherry casks. That's what really sets us apart. We
Smells
use
like
sherry
apple
casks.
juice.
Oh, there you go.
Really going hard with the apples here.
Mott's.
Yeah.
Like applesauce or something.
Well, they're
you know?
not baked. Because what?
No, they're not baked.
They're not baked.
No, they're just
there you
freshly
go.
squeezed.
There you go.
Yep.
Oh well. Well, I get everyone's nose is different, of course.
Yeah. Sorry. I'm off the team now.
Yeah, I mean our stills.
She said yes.
we've got saxophone shaped stills, which means that we have a robust kind of earthy character, and on top of that we've got all these fruits which you're picking up. But bramble fruits is quite dominant, I think. Apricots, figs.
Oh, yeah.
All that going on, kind of
Yeah, definitely get the
soft
apricots.
fruits and the darker fruits come through. So with GlenDronach, we source Spanish oak from Spain, from Galicia, is filled with 2 types of sherry primarily. Pedro Jimenez and Oloroso. And Pedro Jimenez, I think we buy the most Pedro Jimenez casks in the industry because Pedro Jimenez is known as the king of sherries.
Okay.
And it gives you a really unctuous kind of sweetness, dates, raisins, dark chocolate, all of that going on. And really sweet. And then the Oloroso is drier and nuttier. So we, for the 12-year-old, have 12-year-old Pedro Jimenez, 12-year-old Oloroso, and we bring them together, and the combination is the perfect balance for GlenDronach.
So a question about when you're using, XPX and Oloroso barrels and stuff like that, because you use them multiple times over. Is there because you're going to only extract so much of that flavor, you're not going to get it every single time. So is there like a chalk line? It's like you 1, 2, 3, like we've used
All
this
right,
3
you're out.
times. Yeah. And so we need one that's a first new fill or a few new fills to add into this to kind of keep that sort of consistency to it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just...
So it is a chalk
Yeah,
line. No,
Yep.
I've got a flight path.
many chalk sticks do you have?
Flight path I'm working on because obviously as volume grows, and it will, people love GlenDronach. We're disgorging casks for the 12-year-old, and they're all first fill. Mm-hmm. Pedro Jimenez and Oloroso, you did ask in this. first fill. We disgorge those, and then we'll maybe refill them with new make, the new fill. And then I know that it's going to take longer for a second fill. So it might be 18 years or more, or I might even have to re-rack it back into first fill
18
if it's not worked as well, or it's not extracting enough. But Spanish oak is incredibly deep in color and tannins. Spanish oak cask lasts a long time. So typically in the industry, going back to the 19th century, they would have been used 3, 4, or 5 times.
Wow.
And they would have still been strong. They wouldn't have leaked, etc. They're solid. They've got thick staves. They're big casks, but we only use them twice, really. And if I was to fill it a third time, I would
Probably not going to get much out of it. Yeah.
I would re-rack it after a few years.
What do you mean re-rack?
I take the whiskey out of that cask and put it into first fill.
Gotcha. Okay.
So, it's like if you've got kids, if they're doing well at school, you leave them at school and they're doing well and they're flourishing and they're, becoming great individuals. If they're not doing so well at school, you might take it out and put it into a different school.
Rachel, you hit it out of the park with this one. This one's
Thank
awesome.
you.
You like the Glen?
Yes,
The GlenDronach?
I think I'm a Glen fan. I like the valleys in the Highlands.
Yeah. Well, the thing about GlenDronach is I'm a judge at spirits competitions.
Okay.
And for me, the hallmark of fine whiskey, full stop, but especially finest single malt, is that it must be complex, balanced, loads of character, and always deliver more on the taste than on the nose.
Yeah. I'm getting
Exceed expectations every time.
this reminds me of like a apple cider with all the you get the cinnamon sticks and the mulling spices all in there, kind of, and just like a little bit fruitier version of that, but really
Very
hitting
spicy.
like cider.
You're getting the spice from the Oloroso cask. So you could get warm gingerbread baking in the oven. Cinnamon
like-
sticks, absolutely. Malt. Great for Christmas. This
Everything
is
for
like
fall for me, like when I think about
fall
fall.
or Christmas in a glass, definitely fall as well. So you get a nuttiness at the back of the palate from the Oloroso. So when you taste it, I'll better just have another sip.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah. I guess I got another question about, because I know that GlenDronach has a really big kind of cult following sort of behind it too. Like it's one of the most popular brands that are out there. And I know.
How do I join?
I know there was it had been probably a year, maybe a year and a half ago, there was a release called like 1993. Was kind of talk about sort of that and sort of some of these sort of special releases that are coming out that a lot of these sort of really whiskey nerds and Scotch nerds are really going for.
Yeah, I mean, the beauty of GlenDronach is that it's traditional and we haven't changed anything. So that's why I call it's kind of old style. And what that means is you're working with nature. And obviously we do have seasons. So, for example, in the spring, in the spirit of the still, I might get a little bit more kind of like vines and almost a grapey quality from malt. It's incredible. And then into June, I'll get more kind of dark fruit and jammy. Into October and autumn and the fall, you get more of this nutty tobacco leaf leather. And it's incredible. Yeah. So what does this mean? Well, obviously, when I create 12-year-olds, I'm using whiskey from all the seasons and I'm giving that perfect balanced taste, getting all that complexity that you love. With the single casks, individual cask bottlings, it's giving the connoisseurs an opportunity to, wow, they're appreciating all these different complex flavors that are coming through in different casks at different times. They're getting that chance to really have a taste of the complexity of GlenDronach in different individual casks. So it might be a cask that's more robust, more full-bodied and oily, Oloroso maybe from November, or it might be one that's a bit more spicy from the winter, or maybe one that's just a bit more jammy from the summer.
I like jammy.
No, that's awesome.
So
really
so and they love discussing it. They love it. But you know your stuff.
Listen, I read a few forums and I see what people are talking about, what they're buying, and I just get curious, and that's just one of the things that happen.
But it's got quite a following. GlenDronach has got quite a following, and more are gravitating. And I think, with this quality, I think people in Kentucky are going to love it.
Yeah, and this one actually, it has a little bit of a darker and richer color than the Ben. But
yeah, well, the Ben and BenRiach and GlenDronach are all natural color, and that means it's just from the cask, naturally cask imparted color. Other malts might have caramel added, for example, but it's all natural for us. So the color that you see is coming from the Spanish oak, Pedro Jimenez or Oloroso sherry. So you get a more intense color.
Well, that's awesome, and thank you so much for the information, and also thank you so much for flying all the way to Scotland to have this interview with us in Louisville. Yeah. I mean, this was a pleasure for us. So I know it was definitely an honor for us to actually have you on here, because there's probably so many people in the Scotch world that know who you are, and it was a pleasure for us to finally have this introduction from somebody like you to say, lead us through a Scotch tasting like this. So it was really an honor.
That's absolutely my pleasure to be with you. And I hope I've managed to convert at least one of you to add single malt Scotch to your repertoire.
I think a Glen and a Ben might be in the ticket here for me. So I agree.
Glen and a Ben.
A Glen and a Ben.
Yep.
Yeah. So you're going for
your
the
new
Ben
tagline.
10.
Yeah. Glen and a Ben.
Yeah.
I agree. I mean, this GlenDronach is really good. And then I'm still not on board with the peat yet. Maybe it's like everything else. It just
How'd
takes
you like
time.
your coffee?
I don't drink coffee.
He doesn't drink coffee.
How'd you like your coffee?
I either like it like black, nothing in it, like Peru or Nicaraguan blends, like they're real kind of fruity, like tannicky kind of, or I like it as an almond milk latte where you kind of get the nuttiness.
See, that's why you like them both.
But I don't like milk with coffee because it kind of like brings it down.
See, you like both Bens, don't you? You like the smoky one too. You were there in the forest.
I was in the forest, in the camp,
You were
roasting
there.
my turkey and marshmallows.
You were.
Yep.
You see, it's interesting you don't like coffee, because people who love coffee and black coffee, that the tannins and the coffee and that kind of lovely lingering taste, they love peated whiskey.
Mm-hmm. They love the peated Ben.
No. The good thing about this is
we're
that
team Pete Ben. He's team no Pete.
With anything else, and when you're tasting whiskey and you're growing with whiskey, everything is, you get a fluid to it. You get a progression, and I remember the first time I had a peated whiskey and or a peated Scotch, and I was like, "There's no way! Like, why would people even drink this?" And now I'm sitting here talking with you, and we're going through it, and you're trying to take me back to those memories and the time sitting around a campfire, and you can actually, you can get some of that from it.
Kenny's never been around a campfire. He's in tech.
I'm a city boy.
You need to take him. You need to take him to
He has
the forest.
electric fires in his house.
Take him to the forest.
We just use it. We flip the switch and it comes on. Yeah, that's how
must
it
be
works.
curious. You need to take your drama curiosity.
Once you get a campfire, you can
forest.
join our team, like tasting panel.
We can have a picnic.
Okay.
We can take some fruit pizza as well.
Okay.
With our
we'll,
Ben 10.
We'll come over to Scotland. We'll bring our fruit pizzas and we'll go and visit the distilleries with you. How about that? Does it sound like a good deal?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Can't wait to see you. You must come and visit us.
Absolutely.
Please
Yeah, we'd
do.
love to make it happen one
Our
day.
distilleries are very close. They're only like half an hour apart.
Yeah.
So
That's
it's easy.
easy.
You can do both.
It's like
You can do
here to
both.
Bardstown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Rachel, thank you again for coming on the show today. Like I said, it was a true honor, especially from somebody of your caliber and your history of being able to guide us through this. It was really fantastic. So, Ryan, go ahead and start. Oh, actually, I want you to also get an opportunity for anybody else that's out there that wants to learn more about you or wants to follow you on social media. What are your...
Are you an Instagrammer or
I am.
Twitter? Yeah,
Or
kind of talk about how people
Facebook or
can get in contact.
Snapchat?
What am I? I'm Lady Blender on
Twitter. Yep.
On Instagram, I'm RB Whiskey Maker.
I like it.
There we go.
There you go.
So now you go follow her and you can kind of get an idea of the Glens and the Bens and everything we've been talking about today. So it's a fantastic opportunity. So,
But our malts also have Facebook sites. I have to say
yes.
our malts, BenRiach
Yes.
and GlenDronach, also they have Facebook sites and they're on Instagram. as
And
well.
One thing I
Twitter.
forgot to ask
and
was
Glenglassaugh.
Yeah, Glenglassaugh.
Yeah, did I
Don't
say it
forget
right?
that.
Did I say it right?
And Glenglassaugh is 2. And
Glenglassaugh. Damn it.
Glenglassaugh
So
we've not
close.
even tasted. And,
One thing I forgot
next
to ask,
time,
what are the
next
price
time.
points? Like, if somebody were to,
Okay, so the
Oh
Ben
yeah,
10.
we got to take it to the
Ben
American
10
dollars.
is $60 a bottle. Yeah, roundabout. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And Curiositas and the GlenDronach 12. Yeah, they're all around about $60.
Oh, that's
So you just
great
need
value.
to find your malt, and we've got a malt for everyone.
Find your malt.
I was about to
love
say that's a
that.
Find your
t-shirt.
malt.
It's a t-shirt in the making right there.
So whether
Glen
you
and
like
Ben
fruit,
and find your malt. Find your malt with Glen and Bens. There you go.
That's what you need to
You're
do.
welcome, Brown-Forman.
yeah.
Bills in the mail. No, thank you so
Absolutely.
much. This was an honor and a lot of fun. I think we had a good time, and I
I had a good time. Thank
can't
you
wait
for
to join your team. And we'll do a bunch of tastings together. Put the Glen and Bens out there for everyone to like. But no, I didn't know anything about Scotch coming into this, so it was
Me
just
neither.
interesting for me to sit here and chat with you about it. And now once I've kind of break that initial hurdle, now it's like a deep dive and like let's nerd out as much as we can about it. So I'm definitely a big fan of Glen and Ben. So appreciate you taking the time and coming to see us across the pond. So with that, we'll see y'all next time.
Cheers.
Thanks for having me.